tell us the story of just how the song was written.
Well, I mean, you know about the 4 little girls being drowned in the
Right.
shipwreck. So then he, after the shipwreck, Mrs. Spafford was picked up.
Right.
4 little girls were drowned. Mrs. Spafford was picked up and taken off and went to Paris, landed in Wales, I think, and then went to friends in Paris. And he then came over to fetch her back to America. And as he was coming across the Atlantic, the captain of the ship said, "Mr. Spafford, I think we are now passing over the place where the shipwreck took place, and your 4 little girls went to the bottom of the sea." And that's when he wrote the hymn. And if you see the manuscript of the hymn, I mean, he had a piece of the hotel notepaper that he'd been staying in the night before, and it was just scribbled in his handwriting. She'd been doing a lot of sort of help work to a lot of people homeless, you know. They'd been working very hard after the Chicago fire, helping out. And so that's when they decided to take a holiday in Europe. And the wife and he got delayed because he had something to do with the property that he'd lost during the fire. And so he didn't go on the ill-fated ship, and he thought he was going to follow them afterwards.
Now, did most of the people that came to the American colony, were they Swedish, Norwegian?
No, they were mostly Americans. Entirely Americans when they came. They all came in 1881.
Okay.
Mrs. Spafford, she was Norwegian by birth. So they had strong Scandinavian connections in Chicago. And they went back to Chicago during the maybe 1880s, early or late 80s. During the 1880s, yes. And the Swedes there was a big Swedish community, and they decided that they would join the Americans, that the Americans were leading the sort of life that they would like to lead. And they were very messianically inclined, and they decided to up sticks and join them in America, in Jerusalem. And the leader of the community, Larson, he then went over to Sweden, where other Swedes were still there, the families of these Swedes, and said to them, you must come to Jerusalem. It's the end of days, and you should all come to Jerusalem.
And they thought the Lord would return soon.
Yes. And this is the time you must come. If you look in the exhibition down in the hall, I think there's the message he sent to them, a little newspaper cutting, saying you must come to Jerusalem. So they did, and then there were as many Swedes as Americans. But this was 1896. It was 15 years later. So then it was a joint community, but it was always called the American colony because the Americans started it. Yes.
And when did you meet your husband?
Well, we met in London. We did meet through a Jerusalem connection, actually. I had an uncle who worked in the British Mandate here, and so his son was my cousin, and he used to come back to England, my cousin, and spent a lot of time with us during the holidays. He was out here with his family. They all knew each other when they were children. And when Horatio came to England, he shared a flat with my cousin, and was by then working in England. And so I met him through that. So then we met. I'd never heard of the American colony. I knew nothing about it at all. We lived in England then for a long time.
And when did you come here?
63. It's a long time ago already, 63. It seems to me quite recent, but it is actually a long time. It's 40 years ago. Well, of course, it is a hotel. Right. Yeah, it is a hotel. Well, not a religious institution. I would say it's certainly run on good Christian lines. It's an institution because it's such a neutral place. I mean, it's always been very much of a meeting place. And it's very much a meeting place where both Jews and Arabs feel comfortable. I mean, sometimes the Jews don't feel comfortable coming over to East Jerusalem, and very often the Arabs don't feel at all comfortable going to West Jerusalem. And we live actually on what is the Green Line, the road outside the Nablus Road, is the border between Jordan and Israel. So in a very neutral position. We're not part of the conflict. We're not Arabs, we're not Jews, we're foreigners, we're hotel keepers. And it's just got a great tradition of hospitality and doors open to everybody. Of course, during the Intifada and times like that, then the Jewish clientele drops off. But they come back again. They always come back. And they're coming back a bit at the moment. This Intifada has made it very difficult, but it still remains very much a meeting place. And, of course, for international people, too, because it had an international clientele for a long time, and journalists for a long time. You know about Lowell Thomas, the New York Times correspondent. He stayed here. He was a very great friend. And he met D.H. Lawrence here.
Oh, yeah.
Here. I mean, not D.H., T.E., Lawrence of Arabia. And he wrote that first book, which sort of romanticized Lawrence and put him on the map. Yeah. I remember reading it when I was about 15. Yeah. We're very fortunate because it was open country when they moved in here in 1896. It was all open country all around. It was a big Husseini estate with these lovely gardens. We're lucky we still got them, right in the middle of the town like this.